recording and recording. It's fun. I miss you guys terribly. And I hope that we can be together again someday. All right. So today what we're going to cover is more of Obama's administration. We're going to look at our domestic issues that he was facing and how our culture changed. And let me tell you, it is a lot of change in a short time. Tons of change. It's the most change I've seen. Okay, in how our society operates, in how our society's norms changed. It is huge. We're going to be looking at pages 448 to 451. We're going to be looking at climate change. So I want to give you some background. So when I was in school, like you guys are, they told me constantly that we were going to have another big ice age. That's what all the scientists agreed on, that there was an ice age and there had to be another ice age again because that's just the way things are. I don't know what science was behind it, if any, because some of the stuff we call science isn't. It's just somebody's ideas. So they said that the whole earth was going to be covered with with giant glaciers. Glaciers are big, like mountains of ice. Okay, huge, that slide over the land, and we have had glaciers. Okay, there's evidence that we've had glaciers before, probably after the flood is what a lot of people think, creation scientists. And so that's what they said. They said at some point in time, the whole earth is going to be covered in ice, and it's going to kill everything, and it's going to be really bad, and we're all going to die. Yep, it's horrible, it's awful, we're all going to die. That is the thing. It's horrible, it's awful, we're going to die. And we're going, because there won't be any food, also overpopulation of the earth. By the year, which is already past, like 1999 or 2000 or late 90s, I can't remember even what they were telling me because it didn't happen. The whole entire, there would be starvation because there will be too many people on the earth and there won't be any food and we're all going to die. It's going to be horrible and awful and we're all going to die. They also said that by the year 2000, the sun would no longer shine, because of their evolutionary beliefs of when the earth was created and how long a star lives, that the sun should no longer be around, and so then we would all die because there would be no food. You know, you can't grow food without light, without photosynthesis. There is no plants creating anything to eat, and so again, it's horrible, it's awful, we're all gonna die. Okay, so this has kind of been what I'm used to my whole life, and now I don't believe any of it. I just don't. Just because everything they've ever told me when I was a kid, none of it ever happened. So, sorry, that's just the way it is for me now that I am older, and nothing that they've ever said was going to happen has happened. Okay? So, when they discovered that the earth was not going to cool and have a big ice age, then they seemed to change it to the earth is warming up. Okay, and then it was that all of the ice caps on the North Pole and the South Pole, they were all going to melt, stop being frozen, that they were all going to melt, that they were going to create the oceans to rise, and that the coasts of the United States would no longer be the coast because they'd all be underwater. So California, New York, like New York City, not the whole state, the coasts, yes, of California and Washington and Oregon, and the coasts of Maine and New Hampshire and Delaware, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia. If I missed anybody on that coast, I'm sorry, that they would all have parts of their state underwater, and New York City would not even exist. They've even done like movies where New York City is totally drowned out of, existence and stuff. So that was their new thing. And then as people kept looking at it, they go, wait, this is like the coldest winter we've had in like 27 years, or this is that. And then they said, oh, okay, so it's going to be climate change, okay? So that's the new term we use now, is climate change. Before, when I was a kid, we had climate cooling. Then, when my kids were kids, we had climate warming. Yes. And now we just have climate change. That way, if it goes either way, they're good. Okay? So, don't know, but that's what they're saying. So, these are the 3 questions that they wanted to answer that should be answered about climate change. 1, is our Earth really warming? Now, remember, people started saying, hey, this isn't, and then they changed it. So, instead of global warming, to climate change. Okay? So, they changed it. Then, number 2, are people responsible, or is this a cycle? So, fun fact, when I was a kid, they got rid of Freon, and they got rid of aerosol spray cans. Okay, a little, yeah. And so they said it was because those things got up into the atmosphere and put a hole in the ozone layer. After they studied it for more years, what they discovered is the ozone layer has a cycle. Has nothing to do with us. Okay? Didn't have anything to do with Freon or aerosol sprays. That, for reasons that they don't understand, again, God created it, He knows, but they don't. There's a hole in the ozone layer that grows and shrinks and changes, okay? And it has nothing to do with us. People didn't do it. Don't know. It's just cycle. So is this climate change a cycle that naturally occurs and we just don't know about it because we haven't been keeping records of the weather for the whole time the Earth's been in existence? And number 3, can we stop it? So if this is happening, if it's not a cycle, if the Earth is warming, can we stop it? So remember I said I went back to school differently? So I went to college in 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah. I started in 2006 in the summer and I graduated in 2010. So I watched a movie called Inconvenient Truth that my science teacher had us watch. And it was all about global warming, and it was Al Gore and all his predictions. And I've actually tried to find it to see if any of those predictions had come true or not. And I can't find it anywhere. So I'm going to look again and see if I can find it. But I can't find it anywhere. But that was like the big thing. Inconvenient Truth. Oh, we got to stop things. And so I don't know. I don't know. So, scientists disagree. Some scientists say, yes, this is happening. Other scientists say, no, this is not happening. It's just a cycle. And if you look at the trends and that, this isn't happening. So the science community does not agree. Now, the fun thing about science communities is when some scientist stands up and say, this is what's happening, when other scientists find out that that's not actually happening, they kind of get laughed at. So we even see that right now with the coronavirus. So one guy came out and said, this is what's going to happen. And now that they've been studying it for a while, other people are coming out and saying, no, this is what we need to do. We need to do this and this and this and stop doing what we're doing right now. And other people are like, oh, you just don't care. And so the science community isn't very open to different ideas about science. So like even like the guy who made the periodic table, super smart man, and it all works. He actually kept that quiet that he had discovered this until he got his doctorate. Because if they decide when you're trying to get your doctorate that you're a little nutty, even if you're not, but they think you're nutty, they won't give you the doctorate. So what he did is he waited till he got his doctorate, and then he came out with his periodic table, and people scoffed at him and said, oh, this can't be true, blah, blah, blah. And then they started like experimenting and go, oh, this is true. So that is a funny little thing about science. Okay, so we have people who say there is no such thing as climate change. It's a cycle. We have people that are saying, oh, you are silly and there is climate change. And so, look around, I guess, is what I would say. And what do you see? What do you observe? Do you observe it getting warmer? Do you observe it staying the same? Do you observe that some years are warmer and some years are colder? I don't know. What do you observe? Okay, I don't know. So, But those who believe that climate change are real are looking for evidence of it. And one of the things that they said was evidence was the Hurricane Sandy. It hit New Jersey in 2012, and it was a big storm. And like storms like that don't usually hit New Jersey because the waters up there are usually colder. But the Earth has cycles. So there's an El Nino and an El Nina, and there's just all these different things that happen on the earth, because remember, the earth is ginormous. Yeah. And so they used Hurricane Sandy as an example of global warming. Because of global warming, they wanted to look for renewable resources of energy. This is not a bad thing to look for renewable resources of energy. So renewables like wind and solar and those kinds of things, which are fine. I mean, we have solar panels on our school, right? That's fine. It's a good thing to, be good stewards with what God gives us. I tell you that all the time. And it's the same with the earth. Let's be a good steward. I'm sorry, I've like an itch right here. Of what God gives us. Absolutely. The funny thing I find, though, is when people are like, yes, let's do wind and solar, and they don't want it in their neighborhood. So you have these giant windmills that turn and generate electricity, yeah? And they're all like, no, I don't want a windmill because it makes a hum, and I don't want the windmill in my neighborhood because of the birds and because of the thing. And it's like, what? You want renewable energy. So that is a struggle. Where do you put this renewable energy? Because you can't put it too far away from people because it has to travel down the lines, okay? So it's really a tough thing to figure out because everybody says yes, 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 and then they try to go build, and everybody says no, not here. And it's everybody, so they move it here, no, not here, no, not here, no, not here, no, not here. It's even true on the Big Island. Yes, there were thermal plants. I can't think of what this is called right now. It just fell out of my head. Where they were using the heat generated on that island from the volcanoes to do power, and people were upset about that, and the volcano got really close to taking it out. I think it might have actually taken out the plant, and people were cheering. So it's just very confusing, yeah, about that. I don't really understand it myself. I'm just telling you that's what happens. I don't know. You have to make your own decisions. All right, so Obama was all about the renewable resources, so he actually did a stimulus package, which means he gave money for people putting solar panels on their roof. He gave people money for people who bought electric cars because it saved on gasoline. Yes, and then people came out who studied the thing, and they're like, you're not really ever saving gas to pay for the difference in the price of the car, but if you want to help the environment, if that makes you feel good, that's great. If you're buying it to save money, it doesn't, because by the time you save the money, you have to buy the battery, and the battery's like the most expensive. So there were issues with that. There are issues with electric cars because there's not like if you travel on the mainland, here it's not so bad, but if you travel on the mainland, there's big distances between gas stations, and there's even less places to plug in your car. So you can't really use your car if it's electric to travel across the entire country or anything because there just isn't electric stations. So they started coming up with issues like that. If you notice on this island, some places have charging stations. You can drive your electric car up and you can charge it for free while you're inside shopping. Okay, so they're trying to figure out solutions to this problem, but I've been off the mainland for 3 years now. I'm working on my 4th year. So there might be a difference now there, but there's very seldom that you could find charging stations. So there's things that limit the use of the car. So some people were upset about that. So by 2015, actually, during President Obama's election, he said he was going to put the coal industry out of business. Coal is a huge industry in Pennsylvania, and yeah. So in 2015, he had done a really good job of that. So before 2015, half of the energy that we had in this country came from coal, and he got it down to 1/4 of that came from coal. The rest of it came from some of it came from shipping in oil from the Middle East and burning the oil to make electricity. But he felt that coal was a bigger danger because of the emissions that coal gives. And in the beginning of using coal, it was pretty bad. But they have come up with a lot of things to clean out the particles and stuff that before it comes out the chimney. So they've cleaned it up a lot. Okay. So that is global warming and what they tried to do with it and changed it to climate change. I'm sorry, I'm still on global warming. At least I'm not on global cooling anymore, right? I'm on global warming. So gay rights. So let me check my notes. So gay rights is the ability for people who are homosexuals to be able to marry each other. Okay, that was like the big push. They wanted men wanted to be able to marry men, and women wanted to be able to marry women. And Christians were very concerned about how that would affect society, because there's a lot of research about people being raised with two parents. There's a man, a dad, and a mom. There's a lot of research about that kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out how I want to say these things. And the Bible. So the Bible is the big thing. God says that marriage is between a man and a woman. God says that this behavior is not okay. So people who were Christians who strongly believe what the Bible says really had a hard time with this. President Obama came out in support of gay marriage. I think I put that up there, yes. And said that there should be gay marriage. The state of Massachusetts is the first state that passed a gay marriage law where people who were of the same sex could in fact marry each other. Okay. And then in 2015, a case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said yes, that two men can marry each other, two women can marry each other. Now, the big concern that Christian people had was that they would be forced to do weddings for homosexual couples, that they would be forced to make cakes and flowers and do all these things, and they were promised that that would not happen. They were promised that because the First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the free right of your religious practices, that if you strongly held to the fact that God says marriage is between a man and a woman, one man, one woman, and the two shall become one, and okay, that you would not be in trouble with the government if you said, you know what, I can't make a wedding cake for you. I'm really sorry. I don't support, my religious beliefs go against what you're doing, and I can't do it. And they were promised that. Well, that was not true. That was a complete and utter lie, because the minute that it got passed, Christian people who were in this industry, who did flowers for weddings and cakes for weddings, were approached to do weddings for same-sex marriage couples. And they said no, and the couples sued them. Okay? And the case, there was a baker. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you're allowed to have your religious convictions and not bake for a homosexual couple. But it shouldn't have gone to the Supreme Court if what they had said was fact, that your freedom of religion would allow you to say to a homosexual couple, no, I can't do this, I'm really sorry. And there are other bakeries, there are other flower shops. So unfortunately, they have been sued, they have been fined, they have been put out of business for their religious stand, for what they believe the Lord talks about when he talks about marriage. again, you go back to what God's word says about things. Because men want what men want. Okay, the Bible talks about that. But what does God say? And so this was really an issue, another issue that divided the country. Not only did it divide the country because there are followers of Christ that say, hey, we don't agree with this, but also because people were being sued. So the homosexual community is like, you should not have a problem with this. You should just, be okay and do what we want. And if you don't, we sue you. And the Christian community is like, wait, we have a right to the freedom of our practicing of our religion. There were even issues. Will preachers still be able to preach about one wife and one husband being marriage? Or will they end up going to jail? Because nowadays it's actually called hate speech. And will Christian schools still be able to teach that marriage is supposed to be between one man and one woman, and there's no other prescription for marriage that God gives? Okay? So these were huge issues, still are today actually huge issues, because even right after that bakery thing was decided, a homosexual couple came back into that same bakery, a different couple, and wanted a cake. And so it's like a constant barrage. Yeah. And so that's why that has really divided the country. Abortion. These are really heavy topics, guys. I'm just like, okay. So abortion in this country was, fun fact, there's no law about abortion. It was a Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, Roe versus Wade. It was brought to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, women can have abortions because it's protected under the Constitution, under the right to privacy. And that happened in 1973. Fun fact, the lady who was the one suing has changed her whole mind, and now she works for restricting and getting rid of abortion. So, fun fact. Okay. During Obama's administration, a lot of the states tried to put in some restrictions on abortion, such as not being able to abort the baby all the way up to the day it's born. Such as in our book, it talks about counseling. So the ability to sit down and talk to a woman and to make sure she understands what an abortion is, how it might affect her in the future. There's actually support groups for people who have had abortions, because there's emotional things that nobody has really talked about or looked at or even thought about at the time. In 1973, we could not see inside of a woman's womb, and so we did not know that the baby was what the baby looked like. Okay, now we have ultrasounds and we can watch the baby develop through the time that it begins to the time it is born. So they wanted to set up some counseling. If you got counseling and you still wanted to have the abortion, that was fine. If you got counseling and you wanted to keep your baby, that was fine. But they just wanted women to be aware, because they were seeing emotional issues after abortion that had not been known before. Also, some of the states wanted a waiting period. So you would go in and you'd make the appointment and you'd say, hey, I want an abortion. And they'd say, oh, well, okay. And, you can have an abortion in 4 days or 3 days or whatever. Kind of like the Brady gun laws. Yes, you go in, you fill out paperwork for a gun, and then you have to wait a little while. So that's kind of what they were doing. They just wanted you to wait a while to think about it, because some people said, that they regretted it right after. So they were trying to do things to kind of try to help women so that it wasn't like a rash decision, and so that they really understood what was happening. And anytime you try to limit abortion in any way, people freak out about it. And they say, oh, we're gonna go back. They just freak out about it. Okay. So what does the Bible say about abortion? So abortion is when you terminate a pregnancy. That means that you are no longer pregnant because you get rid of the baby. Okay. So that's what it is. And so the Bible tells us that we are all created in God's image. And that David talked about how God knew him even when he was in the womb. Okay? And so, if God already knows you and God created you, what should we as Christians believe about abortion? Well, taking a life, an innocent life, is not something God wants us to do. Okay? So again, abortion splits us. Okay? Obama went one step further. Obama took US dollars and sent them to other countries to pay for other countries to perform abortions on women. Okay? That is actually was against federal law. There was a federal law, I think it was in the 80s, but I'm not sure, that said that we would not send money to other countries so people could get abortions. Okay? So that was a problem. So again, you have the people that think that a woman should be able to get an abortion at any time for any reason. And then you have people who think that abortion is killing a baby and you shouldn't be allowed to do that ever. So you have this division, and it was just like exasperated during this time. This division has been there, and as far as I can tell, will always be there. Okay. All right. Then something came out about an organization that performs a lot of abortions. And Obama came out in support of it, even though we found out they were breaking laws as well, selling baby parts and stuff. But he supported them, and he said, no, it's all fine. This is taken out of context or whatever. Okay, which again, divided the nation. All right. So, these three issues, climate change, not so much the climate change, but how we're trying to deal with it. Gay rights, again, not so much gay rights, but how we're trying to deal with it. And abortion, okay? Again, how we're trying to deal with it. Really divided the nation yet again. Obama's presidency, the issues and things that came up really drove divisions in this country. Racial, gun control, abortion, climate change, what to do in the Middle East. It was very divisive, and it was a struggle, okay? And we're still seeing the struggle today. All right, so in your book, it talks about the generalization between Republicans and Democrats. And so I'm going to read them. They're in your book. So generally speaking, Republicans are opposed to abortion and gay marriage. They question the science of climate change and whether humans actually have anything to do with it. Okay? Democrats, generally speaking, support abortion and gay marriage and believe that climate change is man-made, so we as people have to fix it. Okay? So Republicans tend to believe it's a cycle, and Democrats tend to believe it's because humans are sassy and do bad things to the environment. Okay? All right. Because they're so opposed. Yes, they do find it hard, especially in Congress. I don't know why so much in Congress, but they do find it hard in Congress to work together to come up with solutions that are sensible. Okay? They have a tough time doing that. And like I said, the divisions deepened over Obama's administration. So what can a Christian do? A Christian can pray. God tells us, pray for our leaders. A Christian can get into politics, help what's going on. What can a Christian do? A Christian can read their Bible, yes, and see what is the truth, because God holds all truth in his hands. All right, that's everything I have for today, and I will see you later. Bye, guys.